The mysterious stranger. Research station hummed with quiet efficiency as Cassandra reviewed her latest. Atmospheric readings from the newly discovered planet designation, XK739. The colony ship Aurora had been orbiting this world for 3 weeks now, and the data suggested it might finally be the home humanity had been searching for after decades in space. She stretched her tired muscles, glancing at the chronometer. Another 18-hour shift was coming to an end. The exhaustion was catching up with everyone on board, but the excitement of potential colonization kept them all pushing forward despite their fatigue. Dr. Cassandra Vale? She turned to find a man she'd never seen before standing in her lab doorway. He was tall, with dark hair and striking silver-blue eyes that seemed to hold depths she couldn't fathom. His clothes were simple, but well-made, and there was something about his presence that made the air feel charged with electricity. "Yes, that's me." "I don't believe we've been introduced." She stood, smoothing her lab coat, and suddenly aware of how disheveled she must look after the long day. "I'm Darius. I need to speak with you about something urgent." He stepped into the lab, and she noticed how gracefully he moved, like someone comfortable in their own skin, yet always alert to danger. "Are you part of the Colonial Assessment Team? I don't have you on my roster." She pulled up her personnel files, frowning as she searched. "I'm not officially part of your crew." His voice was low, almost musical, and it sent an unexpected shiver down her spine. "But I have information that could save lives, starting with yours." Something in his tone made her heart skip. "What kind of information?" Darius moved closer, and she caught a scent like winter air and distant stars. "This planet isn't as empty as your scans suggest. There are entities here that exist in the space between waking and sleeping. They feed on consciousness, and they're drawn to exhausted minds like moths to flame." Cassandra felt a laugh building in her throat. "That sounds like something from a bad horror novel. Are you trying to scare me?" His expression remained deadly serious. "When you sleep tonight, they'll come for you. They whisper promises of rest, of peace, of dreams beyond imagination. But if you listen, if you let them in, you'll never wake up again." Despite herself, Cassandra felt drawn to this mysterious stranger. There was something magnetic about him, something that made her want to believe every impossible word he spoke. "Even if I believed you, what am I supposed to do? Never sleep again? Stay awake tonight. Let me protect you." Darius reached out, his fingers barely brushing hers. The contact sent warmth racing up her arm. "I know it sounds insane, but you have to trust me." She should have called security. Should have reported the unauthorized person in her lab. Instead, she found herself nodding, captivated by those otherworldly eyes and the genuine concern in his voice. The first night, despite Darius's warning, exhaustion overwhelmed Cassandra's caution. She'd tried to stay awake, consuming cup after cup of coffee while reviewing planetary data. But her body betrayed her around 0300 hours. Her head hit her desk, and consciousness slipped away like sand. Through her fingers, the dreams began immediately. She found herself walking through corridors that weren't quite right. Versions of the Aurora's familiar passages. The walls seemed to breathe, and shadows moved independently of any light source. Whispered voices called her name from empty rooms, promising answers to questions she'd never thought to ask. "Cassandra, we've been waiting for you." The voices were seductive, almost musical. They spoke of knowledge beyond human understanding, of secrets hidden in the spaces between stars. All she had to do was follow them deeper into the dreamscape. She felt herself being drawn forward, her feet moving without her conscious control. The corridor stretched endlessly ahead, lit by a phosphorescent glow that seemed to come from the walls themselves. Behind her, she could hear footsteps that weren't quite human. "Don't listen to them." Darius's voice cut through the whispers like a blade through silk. Suddenly, he was there beside her, his hand warm and solid on her shoulder. "They're not offering gifts. They're harvesting souls." The shadow voices grew angry, screaming protests that made the dream corridors shake. Darius pulled her against him, and she felt the solid strength of his chest, the rapid beating of his heart. His touch anchored her to something real and human in the madness. "How are you here?" she gasped, clinging to him as the shadows pressed closer. "The same way they are. I exist in multiple dimensions." His arms tightened around her protectively. "But unlike them, I choose to help rather than consume." The shadows lunged forward like living smoke, and Darius thrust one hand toward them. Light blazed from his palm, driving back the darkness with sounds like screaming wind. The dream world began to crack and shatter around them. "Wake up, Cassandra. Wake up now." She jerked awake at her desk, gasping and disoriented. Darius was there, his hands gentle on her shoulders, his silver eyes filled with concern. The lab light seemed almost blindingly bright after the dream darkness. "They almost had you," he said softly, helping her sit up properly. "Another few minutes and your consciousness would have been lost. Forever." Cassandra's hands trembled as she accepted the glass of water he offered. That wasn't just a dream, was it? No. They use sleep as a doorway between dimensions. Once they have a foothold in someone's mind, they can pull their entire consciousness through. Darius knelt beside her chair, its proximity both comforting and thrilling. "I've seen it happen to others. Empty shells left behind while their souls feed an entity that grows stronger with each victim." She studied his face, noting details she'd missed before. His skin had an almost luminescent quality, and his eyes held flecks of color that seemed to shift in the light. "What are you, Darius?" His hand covered hers, sending warmth shooting up her arm. "Someone who's been fighting this war longer than you can imagine. Someone who's learned that some battles are worth any sacrifice." The Shadow Realm, the next morning, brought disturbing reports from across the Aurora. 3 crew members had fallen into mysterious comas overnight, their bodies alive, but their minds seemingly absent. Medical couldn't explain the condition, and Captain Torres was growing desperate for answers. Cassandra found herself working alongside Darius, studying the quantum signatures emanating from the planet's surface. His knowledge of interdimensional physics was extraordinary, surpassing even the Aurora's most brilliant scientists. "The entities exist primarily in what we call the Shadow Realm," he explained, his shoulder brushing hers as they bent over the sensor displays. "It's a dimension that overlaps with ours during certain conditions, particularly when conscious minds are vulnerable through exhaustion or sleep. But how do you know all this?" Cassandra asked, acutely aware of his closeness, the way his presence seemed to make her heart race. "Your knowledge is far beyond anything in our databases." Darius was quiet for a long moment, his fingers moving over the control panel with practiced ease. When he finally spoke, his voice carried the weight of old pain. "Because I've been trapped between dimensions for over a century. I was part of the first human expedition to encounter these entities." Cassandra's breath caught. "That's impossible. You can't be more than 35 years old." He turned to face her fully, and she saw the truth in those ageless silver eyes. "Time moves differently in the Shadow Realm. I've spent decades learning to navigate between worlds, fighting to prevent others from suffering my fate." Without thinking, she reached up to touch his face. His skin was warm and very real under her fingertips. "You've been alone all this time?" "Until now." His hand covered hers, holding it against his cheek. "You're the first person who's been able to see me clearly in both dimensions. The first person I've felt truly connected to in decades." The air between them crackled with tension and possibility. Cassandra found herself leaning closer, drawn by something deeper than physical attraction. "Darius," he cupped her face gently, his thumb tracing her cheekbone. "I never expected to feel this way again. To want something more than just the mission." Their lips met in a kiss that seemed to ignite every nerve ending in her body. She could taste starlight in distant worlds, could feel the loneliness and hope that had driven him through decades of solitary fighting. When they broke apart, both were breathing heavily. The others who fell into comas, she whispered against his lips. "Can we save them?" "Not from this dimension." Darius's expression grew grim. "We'd have to enter the Shadow Realm directly. That means risking both our souls." Cassandra straightened, her resolve hardening. "Then that's what we do." "I'm not letting those people die." His smile was filled with admiration and something deeper. "I was hoping you'd say that." Fighting the darkness, this transition into the shadow realm, felt like stepping through cold water that existed in 4 dimensions simultaneously. Cassandra gasped as reality shifted around them. The familiar walls of the Aurora becoming something twisted and organic. Darius's hand was an anchor in the chaos. His fingers intertwined with hers as they navigated corridors that defied physics. The rescued crew members were somewhere deeper in this nightmarish version of their ship, their consciousness trapped in crystalline structures that pulsed with stolen life energy. "Stay close to me," Darius murmured, his voice carrying clearly despite the whispers that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. "In this realm, your thoughts have power. The entities will try to separate us to make you doubt what's real," as if summoned by his words. Shadow creatures began to emerge from the organic walls. They moved like liquid darkness given form, their presence accompanied by voices that promised rest, peace, and an end to struggle. "Cassandra, why fight us? We can give you dreams more beautiful than any reality." She felt her resolve wavering under their hypnotic influence. But then Darius stepped protectively in front of her. Light blazed from his hands, not the harsh fluorescence of technology, but something warm and alive. The shadows recoiled with screams that sounded like tearing metal. "How do you do that?" she asked, watching in fascination as he drove back wave after wave of attackers. "Years of practice, and something I never told you." He glanced back at her, his expression intense. "The connection between us isn't just emotional. Your presence strengthens my abilities, makes me more than I've been in decades." A larger shadow entity emerged from the deeper corridors, its form more solid than the others. When it spoke, its voice was like grinding stone. "The half-breed warrior in his new toy? How touching that you think love can defeat an inevitability." Darius tensed beside her. "Stay behind me, Cassandra." But she felt something stirring within her own mind, a power she'd never suspected. "No, we face this together." She stepped up beside him, and somehow she knew what to do. Light flowed from her hands as well, silver-blue energy that complemented Darius's golden glow. Together, their combined radiance pushed back the surrounding darkness. The entity's form began to waver. "Impossible. Humans cannot channel dimensional energy. This one can," Darius said, wonder in his voice. "She's like me, caught between worlds but choosing to fight rather than hide." Their powers merged and amplified, creating a wave of cleansing light that swept through the shadow realm version of the Aurora. Crystal prisons shattered, releasing the trapped consciousness of their crewmates. The organic walls began to crack and crumble as reality reasserted itself around them. Cassandra found herself back in the familiar corridors of the Aurora. Darius's arms around her waist, both of them exhausted but victorious. Love conquers sleep. 3 days later, the Aurora's crew had fully recovered from their ordeal. The shadow entities had been driven back to whatever distant dimension they'd emerged from, and the planet below showed no further signs of interdimensional interference. Cassandra stood in the observation deck, watching the alien sunset paint the sky in shades of purple and gold. The world that had seemed so threatening now appeared beautiful and full of promise. "Regrets?" Darius asked, joining her at the viewport. His arm slipped around her waist with comfortable familiarity. "About which part? Nearly losing my soul, or falling in love with a century-old interdimensional warrior?" She leaned into his embrace, marveling at how perfectly they fit together. "Either both." His lips brushed the top of her head. "I can't offer you a normal life, Cassandra. The shadow entities may return, and there are other threats out there in the spaces between worlds." She turned in his arms, studying the face she'd come to love with its otherworldly beauty and very human expressions. "Normal was never really an option for me anyway. I became a xenobiologist because I wanted to explore the impossible. And now I've found something more impossible than I ever dreamed. A love that spans dimensions and a partner who literally walked through hell to find me." She rose on her tiptoes to kiss him softly. "Besides, someone has to keep you from fighting these battles alone." His answering smile transformed his face, chasing away the shadows of loneliness that had haunted his eyes. "Captain Torres approved the colony establishment. We'll be the first permanent residents of this world. A fresh start for both of us." Cassandra gazed out at their new home, then back at the man who'd become her anchor between worlds. Think we can handle it? Together? I think we can handle anything. Darius's kiss tasted of starlight and promises. Of adventures yet to come and dangers they'd face side by side, outside their viewport. The first stars appeared in the alien sky, twinkling like scattered diamonds against the vast darkness. But the darkness no longer seemed threatening. With Darius beside her, and the colony taking shape below, Cassandra felt ready for whatever wonders or challenges awaited them in this strange new world. The shadow entities had taught her that sleep could be dangerous, that letting down one's guard invited catastrophe. But they'd also taught her that love could be a weapon against the darkness, that two souls united were stronger than any force that sought to divide them, as the aurora's lights reflected off the planet's surface below. Cassandra squeezed Darius's hand and smiled. She might never sleep quite the same way again, but she'd found something far more valuable than rest. She'd found home. Conclusion. The dawn of New Horizons. 6 months had passed since the shadow entity crisis, and the Aurora colony had flourished beyond anyone's expectations. The settlement sprawled across the valley floor like a gleaming jewel against the alien landscape, its biodomes and research facilities humming with the activity of 3,000 colonists who had chosen to call this world home. Cassandra stood atop the central observation tower, watching the morning sun cast long shadows across the crystalline formations that dotted the surrounding hills. These shadows no longer held terror for her. Through Darius's patient teaching and her own growing abilities, she had learned to see them for what they truly were. Natural phenomena in a universe far more complex and wonderful than humanity had ever imagined. The morning briefing had brought news from Earth. The colonial Stinsk administration was declaring their settlement a complete success, the first truly stable human outpost beyond the solar system. Resources were flowing steadily from the mother world, bringing new colonists, advanced technology, and the promise of a permanent human presence among the stars. Another successful night patrol, Darius reported as he joined her on the observation platform. His interdimensional abilities had made him invaluable to the colony's security force, able to detect threats that conventional sensors couldn't perceive. But more than that, he had become a bridge between humanity and the strange realities they encountered in their expansion among the stars. Cassandra turned to embrace him, still marveling at how natural their partnership had become. Their love had grown deeper with each passing day, strengthened by shared dangers and the quiet moments of peace they carved out together. Any unusual activity? Just the usual dimensional fluctuations near the northern ridge. Nothing that poses a threat to the colony. Darius's arms tightened around her waist. The monitoring stations you designed are working perfectly. We'll have advance warning of any interdimensional incursions long before they become dangerous. Their early warning system had become the model for other colonial efforts. Cassandra's research into the intersection of quantum physics and consciousness had opened entirely new fields of study, earning her recognition from the Scientific Council and offers to lead expeditions to other worlds. But she had chosen to stay here, building something lasting with the man who had saved not just her life, but her understanding of what it meant to be human in an infinite universe. The colony's children had been born free from the fear that had once gripped their parents during those first terrifying nights. They played in gardens where earth flowers bloomed alongside native species, attended schools where they learned both human history and the fundamentals of interdimensional science. Some of them, Cassandra had noticed, showed unusual abilities and intuitive understanding of dimensional mechanics that suggested humanity itself was evolving in response to their new environment. Dr. Vale to the Communications Center, the colony's AI announced. Priority transmission from Colonial Command. Cassandra exchanged glances with Darius. Priority transmissions usually meant either excellent news or serious trouble. They made their way through the bustling corridors of the administrative complex, past laboratories where researchers studied everything from native biology to exotic physics, past workshops where colonists crafted tools and art from local materials. The communications center buzzed with activity. Captain Torres, now the colony's administrator, stood before the main display screen where Admiral Harrison's weathered face filled the frame. Dr. Vale, the Admiral nodded as they entered. Congratulations are in order. Your research has been instrumental in preparing 3 additional colonial expeditions. We're finally ready to establish a permanent human presence in multiple star systems. Cassandra felt a surge of pride mixed with concern. With respect, Admiral, each world will present unique challenges. The protocols we developed here may not apply universally, which is why we're requesting that you lead the scientific assessment team for the Kepler 442 expedition. It's a world that shows similar dimensional anomalies to what you encountered here. The offer represented everything Cassandra had once dreamed of: the chance to explore new worlds, to push the boundaries of human knowledge, to help establish humanity's place among the stars. But as she felt Darius's presence beside her, she realized her dreams had evolved. I'm honored by the offer, Admiral, but I must decline. My work here isn't finished. We're still learning about the long-term effects of dimensional exposure on human consciousness, and the monitoring systems need constant refinement. Admiral Harrison's eyebrows rose in surprise. Dr. Vale, this is the opportunity of a lifetime. Fame, recognition, a chance to shape humanity's future among the stars. I am shaping humanity's future, Cassandra replied firmly. Right here, with every day, we prove that humans can not only survive, but thrive in environments that challenge our basic understanding of reality. Our children are growing up as citizens of the galaxy, not just Earth. That's worth more than personal recognition. After the transmission ended, Darius walked with her to their favorite spot overlooking the colony. The evening was approaching, painting the sky in those familiar purples and golds that had become as beautiful to them as any Earth sunset. No regrets about turning down the promotion? He asked, settling beside her on the crystalline outcropping they had claimed as their own. None whatsoever. Cassandra leaned against his shoulder, watching the colony's lights begin to twinkle in the gathering dusk. I've learned something important over these past months. Home isn't a place you discover at something. You build with the people you choose to love. Their colony was proof that humanity could adapt, could overcome fears and prejudices to embrace the unknown. The shadow entities that had once threatened to destroy them had inadvertently given them a gift, the knowledge that consciousness itself was far more flexible and powerful than anyone had imagined. Children laughed in the distance as they chased native creatures that glowed like living gems through the settlement's parks. Adults shared meals and stories in courtyards where the architecture blended human practicality with alien beauty. Scientists and artists worked side by side, creating a culture that was distinctly human yet adapted to their new world. What do you think? Darius asked quietly. Ready to help build the future? Cassandra smiled, taking his hand as the first stars appeared overhead, not the familiar constellations of Earth, but the unique celestial map of their new home. With you? I think we can build something extraordinary, together. They watched their world settle into sleep, secure in the knowledge that love had indeed conquered the darkness that had once threatened to consume them all.